Good morning. Welcome to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County meeting this date, Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. I'm Scott Ostro, Vice President of the Commissioners of St. Mary's County. Commissioner President Guy is unable to join us today. I'd like to introduce the other commissioners at this time. Sitting to my right, residing in the 1st Commissioner District, which includes Ridge, Piney Point, St. George's Island, Commissioner Eric Colvin.
Good morning.
Residing in the 2nd Commissioner District, which includes Leonardtown and Hollywood, Commissioner Mike Hewitt.
Good morning.
To my left, residing in the 3rd Commissioner District, which includes Charlotte Hall, 7th District, Golden Beach, and Mechanicsville, Commissioner Mike Alderson Jr.
Good morning.
And I am, once again, Scott Ostro, Commissioner 4th District and Commissioner Vice President. To my left, at the extreme end of the dais is, sorry.
David Westcott.
David
Yeah,
Weisskopf.
Commissioner I lost my page. I forgot your name. I don't want anybody to go missing Randy too much, okay? On my immediate right is Miss Julie Birch, our recorder for today. Sitting at the table to my right is our communications director, Miss Jenna Guzman.
Good morning.
Our video media production team is behind the glass. Please turn your cell phones off or on vibrate. When you come to the presenter's table, please approach by coming down the center aisle. And remember, this meeting is being televised, so you need to speak clearly and directly into the microphone for recording purposes, as Commissioner Guy always says, otherwise look good. At this time, we'll have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Colvin.
God Almighty, we thank you for this beautiful spring weather that you've given us. We thank you for this opportunity to serve our community, and we pray that this morning you would give us wisdom and guidance as we do the work that's before us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I need a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second.
Yep, we'll get the second one in a minute.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So done.
I move to authorize the Commissioner President to sign the letter of support for the St. Mary's County Historical Society's application to the Maryland Historical Trust Historic Preservation Capital Grant Program.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. All right, at this time, we'll have a proclamation for Problem Gambling Awareness Month.
Good morning. I'm going to have you guys right around the center. Commissioner Alderson. I'm going to put you on this side. We should be able to have everybody in the front. Okay, and then on this side, move in a little bit. Lovely.
Well, good morning, everybody. I have obviously the Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and welcome everybody who's up here this morning. Whereas the National Council on Problem Gambling has designated March 2026 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and whereas problem gambling is a public health issue affecting millions of Americans of all ages, races, and ethnic backgrounds, and whereas problem gambling has a significant societal and economic cost for individuals, families, businesses, and communities, and whereas problem gambling is treatable and treatment is effective in minimizing this harm to both individuals and society as a whole. And whereas numerous individuals, professionals, and organizations have dedicated their efforts to the education of the public about problem gambling and the availability of effectiveness of treatment. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, do hereby proclaim March 2026 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month and encourage all citizens to support the National Council on Problem Gambling and the St. Mary's County Health Department in their efforts to mitigate gambling-related harm nationwide. This date, March 10, 2026, signed the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
Thank you, Commissioners of St. Mary's County, for recognizing Problem Gambling Awareness Month, a time to raise awareness about the impact problem gambling can have on individual, families, and communities. While gambling may be entertaining for many, for others it can lead to serious financial, emotional, and social challenges. This month reminds us of the importance of education, prevention, and access to support to those who may be struggling. We also recognize the professionals and organizations working to provide resources, treatment, and hope of recovery. We encourage everyone to learn the signs of problem gambling, support those in need, and help reduce the stigma around seeking help. Thank you. Sorry, Tammy Lowy, St. Mary's County Health Department Division Director for Behavioral Health.
TJ Hudson, Program Manager for Prevention and Promotion, St. Mary's County Health Department.
Thank you. Good morning. Taylor Nickerson, Behavioral Health Grant Manager with St. Mary's County Health Department.
Good morning. Amber Helton, Community Health Educator in the Behavioral Health Department.
Thanks, everyone. We're just going to take a moment, look straight down.
I do that. I was testing you. Really not used to this.
All right, that's done.
Now we'll have a presentation from Department of Land Use and Growth Management, decision to revise text 0112, amendment to allow use type 28 in RCA overlay district. Director Andritz presenting. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jessica Andritz from the Department of Land Use and Growth Management, and I'm with you this morning because, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, you conducted a public hearing to review the changes to the proposed ordinance that would allow use type 28 to be able to be conducted in the RCA overlay zoning district. During that time, you heard from zero members of the public regarding any concerns that they might have had. Of course, this is not very surprising considering we did not have a great deal of public engagement the last time we went through this. And so we are here today, hopefully to have a decision that would support the ordinance as drafted. While I understand there were some concerns that were raised briefly a few weeks ago, you heard from the county attorney's office that it's not the best of circumstances, but we're doing what we can to push this forward so that folks in the community will have, I'm going to say, easier access to daycare for their young preschool children. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
The applicant was just fine with vacating their rights to a variance through critical areas.
So from what I recall, Mr. Longmore did not express any specific concerns because, as you know, this is the first, his client is the first applicant that will go through the process to receive this approval. And so because they're the only applicant that has stepped forward as the proponent of this language, the language was tailored to meet their needs. Mm-hmm. And so his client doesn't have any concerns. And I haven't heard anything to the contrary. So I think that's where we sit today.
And I think that was our biggest holdup overall, was that particular portion of the thing.
So we were able to get past critical area concerns with all this?
I'd like to say yes, but I guess that remains to be seen when we go back up there. Brandy and I will go back up there and sit through the full committee of the Critical Area Commission and staff, and hopefully we'll get a favorable vote from them.
And you have our local representative, Mayor Burris, on board, right?
That is correct, and I believe he did advocate for I'm going to say the project, but the concept, I expect him to do the same as we go up there again, but he certainly did that the first time around
That
when we
carries
went.
a lot of weight when your representative does too. Thank you.
Indeed.
All right.
Thank you.
I move to approve the proposed ordinance and amend Chapter 285 of the Code of St. Mary's County, Maryland by amending Schedule 50.4 and Section 51.3.28 to allow use type 28 daycare non-medical in the RCA overlay zoning district, which shall become effective upon the date of approval from the Critical Area Commission.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
I move to authorize Commissioner President to sign, or Commissioner Vice President to sign all related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
Good luck.
I think now we move into
Thank you, Commissioner.
County Administrator time. Yep.
Thank you, sir. We'll start as we always do with the draft agendas for the next 2 weeks, March 17th and March 24th, I believe. Yes. And on March 17th, you'll start at your normal time and place, followed by County Administrator, followed by Office of the County Attorney for legislative updates, Commissioner time, closed session for personnel, adjourn, and then have a budget work session at 1:30. On March 24th, you'll start at your normal time and place and have 2 proclamations, one for Equal Pay Day and one for National Agriculture Day, followed by the College of Southern Maryland, State of the College, County Administrator, Office of the County Attorney, legislative updates, Commissioner time, adjourn, and then have a ribbon cutting at the St. Mary's County Regional Airport runway extension and terminal upgrades. First on the agenda today is the State's Attorney's Office. I do not see anybody from, okay. Department of Land Use and Growth Management, Calvert, St. Mary's Metropolitan Planning Commission. Ms. Deputy Director Courtney Jenkins, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am before you this morning to talk with you about the Calvert St. Mary's Metropolitan Planning Organization. So a Metropolitan Planning Organization, often referred to as an MPO, is a federally mandated and funded transportation policy-making organization, which is required when an urbanized area exceeds a population greater than 50,000. So it is comprised of representatives from local and state government agencies to ensure that federal transportation funding is planned regionally with the 3C planning process, which is continuous, comprehensive, and cooperative. Next slide, please. So the MPO was established after the 2010 census reported that the population in the Lexington Park, California, Solomons, and Lusby region reached 58,000. It was legally designated in December of 2013, and the necessary agreements were fully executed in 2014. The map on the left shows the current MPO planning area.
It's always funny to me how it got gerrymandered down to include St. Mary's College and St. Mary's City.
That is correct. It
my
does include
observation.
this.
It's my observation.
Wouldn't be Maryland otherwise.
Yes, we like to be different. So the CSMPO operates under an adopted set of bylaws. The Technical Advisory Committee consists of individuals who work in a technical capacity within their respective agencies for the region. And then the MPO Council is comprised of 3 voting members, a representative of MDOT, a representative of the Board of County Commissioners for Calvert County, and then a representative of the Commissioners of St. Mary's County. And then the MPO staff consists, Calvert County serves as the fiscal agent, and then St. Mary's County serves as the administrative agent with the MPO planner on staff. Next slide, please. So the 2020 census identified newly urbanized areas in the northern portion of Calvert County that now meets the criteria for MPO inclusion. So the CSMPO encompasses approximately 13 and a half square miles in Calvert County, which represents less than 1/3 of the county's jurisdictional boundaries. Calvert County has stated that the geographic boundary no longer reflects the realities and needs of their growing community, and so they began exploring opportunities to expand the boundary to include all of Calvert County. Next slide, please. Calvert County staff worked with the Maryland Department of Transportation to propose a boundary expansion. And then at the MPO's Technical Advisory Committee meeting in September of 2025, the TAC established a working group to confirm requirements to explore this proposed boundary expansion. So the working group convened in October, December, and then February of 2026, and there are 3 additional meetings proposed to wrap up the work.
And just to be clear here on this slide, Calvert County Commissioners also sent a letter to the governor requesting this, correct?
Yes, they did in late
So
last year.
they've moved ahead a lot further than we have with this.
Correct. And then at that point, that's when the working group was put together to determine how to actually make the expansion feasible.
It was a bit of a surprise since they didn't send a letter to us.
Yeah, the cart went before the horse on that one.
So the task for the working group consists of developing a prospectus, establishing the legal requirements, researching additional potential effects, and evaluating necessary amendments. Next slide, please. So each fiscal year, the MPO establishes a unified planning work program, also called the UPWP. And this projects how the federal dollars, which are allocated from MDOT, will be utilized each year. So the amount of dollars allocated is based on the population of the urbanized areas, which is the population. So this table, it illustrates the potential increased funding that could be allocated by the first change line item shows if the change to the boundary included the Chesapeake Beach urbanized area, which also includes North Beach. And then the second line change here shows what the potential could be if we change the boundary to include Chesapeake Beach and Leonardtown.
It makes it about 3 times the size it is now as far as population, right? 62,000 versus what, almost 170? Am I looking at that existing MPO at 62,352, that population?
So the current is the 62,352.
Right.
If we were to add the Chesapeake Beach urbanized area and the Leonardtown area, it would increase to 86,955.
Okay, so it's not those two combined. I got you. All right, thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions about this slide?
Yeah, so what was Leonardtown's response when you talked to them about the potential of being included in the MPO? This is not something I would think we would want to unilaterally push down on Leonardtown without consulting with them.
I have not had direct conversations with them yet at this time. I was looking for some direction from the St. Mary's County Commissioners first.
Okay, it looks like our deputy county
Well, let's
administrator.
understand, what does it mean? What impact would it have? What
Well,
would change differently than what it is now?
Well, one of the changes would be that the urbanized areas would be increased. So the population would be increased, which means that then the potential amount of funds we receive would be increased. And then there's also the state and local match as well. So that could potentially mean a small increase in the budget request for the MPO
I mean, we're talking
line
like
item.
$11,000 federal, 4,000. I mean, it just seems like not big numbers, but I
Right.
guess my point is what would we see different than what we see now?
Well, if those urbanized areas were included, then within the Chesapeake Beach area and the Leonardtown area, we could add some potential transportation studies to the next UPWP.
So we'd study transportation.
Yes, sir, that's
So it
correct.
opens up those areas to make them eligible for the funding for these studies.
Yes.
Which, if, I've advocated that if we're going to be expanding it for Calvert, we should definitely look at Leonardtown and not miss this opportunity if it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying that it is necessarily, but Leonardtown has a lot of growth and a lot of traffic issues, and I feel like they could probably benefit from some of these traffic studies also.
So Commissioner, David Youngling, Deputy County Administrator for the record. Just to answer your previous question about have there been discussions with Leonardtown? There have not been detailed discussions with Leonardtown because first we would want to gain the opinion of the Commissioners of St. Mary's County before we did that. But we did have some preliminary discussions with the Town Administrator, Lachelle McKay. There was openness to the idea and discussion at the Consolidated Transportation meeting that we had a few months ago. Mayor Burris had quite a lot of questions for State Highway about different plans. The benefit to Leonardtown would be that taking a complaint to State Highway is oftentimes, we'll look at this and study the idea coming with a funded plan to address a traffic area is a much more efficient methodology to making changes. So that would be the thought process. So there's general interest, but there have not been detailed discussions.
So, and then jumping on you a little, Courtney, but
Okay.
the big concern that I have heard in the past, and I don't know if this is true or not, is that expanding the MPO could cause St. Mary's County to have required mandated emissions testing on vehicles. Is that true or not?
That is not true, and we did confirm that as we were going through the working group meetings, yep.
Tell me, clear something up. So if we're going from 62,000 to potentially 86,000, and we're including the whole county of Calvert County or just Chesapeake Beach? I was a little confused when you said, is the whole county of Calvert County going to be included? They get like 90,000 people if we do that.
Sure, so they're proposing for the boundary to include all of Calvert County, but as far as like the federal dollars received, it's only for the urbanized areas.
So they can't use it for traffic studies going down
Route 4.
Route 4 the whole way?
There would need to be some congruency associated with it. So like our next MPO planning study, we're planning on doing like a multimodal study. So that will include a transportation study that will essentially, it'll be focused on the MPO planning area, but it might touch on other areas based on, bus routes and different things like that. So
The bigger issue to Calvert is since the new area that qualifies as in northern Calvert, they're concerned that they're going to end up in two MPOs, maybe being absorbed by the one in Prince George's County. So administratively, there's a lack of cohesiveness in that strategy. So I think that's what prompts their desire to expand their MPO to include all of Calvert County, so it's all connected. And the conversation then goes to, is there a will amongst the commissioners to expand ours to include Leonardtown, which is a high-growth area?
Well, by that strategy, is there any reason that we wouldn't push it up to Charlotte Hall too?
the working group can explore that.
Well, it might not
But
be a
I
bad
don't know if Charlotte Hall is considered an urbanized area, such as
Lot of
Leonardtown and
What about our
Chesapeake Beach.
delegation, Delegate Todd Morgan? I know he was involved in MPO as a commissioner. Have we heard from any of him or Senator Bailey regarding this? Have they inputted on it?
I have not received any input from them. The Tri-County Council is part of the TAC
Okay.
and the working group.
The question about the emissions, it came directly from Delegate Todd Morgan when we first started talking about the expansion. And that was one of his big concerns. And then once we figured out that vehicle emissions would not apply with this expansion,
St. Mary's County.
to St. Mary's County, it would be fine, because Calvert already has it, I believe.
Right, they do.
Then, but once we found out that it wouldn't require us to do vehicle emissions, and that allayed his fears a little bit, so here we are.
Okay. So what you're looking for is direction on where to take this? There wasn't a motion here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So from the working group, the next step was for both staff members to present our findings to both the commissioners of St. Mary's County, and then also Calvert County Board of Commissioners is receiving an update as well, to determine St. Mary's County's position on the proposed expansion, including whether to include its urbanized areas, such as Leonardtown. So then, based on this direction, the findings will be presented to the TAC and the working group and the council. And if so, then we would follow through with formal agreements, finalizing governing documents, and updating the MPO planning documents to reflect all of these changes, and it would come back before you.
I would say check with the town of Leonardtown and see if they could be included.
They definitely
Yeah, so you're just
qualify.
looking for consensus.
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt to take a look at it, because they're not going to put anything that's going to cost us money. They're not going to turn around and say, because you did this, it's going to cost. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
agree, include Leonardtown in the discussion and get their opinion.
This has been percolating long enough. I think it's time we can start moving on it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is the State's Attorney's Office fiscal year 27 GOCPP Gun Violence Reduction Grant application. Chief of Staff Jessica Hall, welcome. Excuse me.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay. The State's Attorney's Office is proposing to apply for the FY 27 Gun Violence Reduction Grant, so the GVRG grant. This would be our fourth year applying for this. We've received the grant all last 3 years that we applied for it. This would support the evidence review analysts. They would be going through the evidence for any cases that involve guns. So we are requesting in grant funds $72,448 and then $28,782 in county match. That's to cover the fringe benefits for this position. This was submitted in our budget in January. However, looking through the notice of funding availability and having them want us to prorate the leave, we had to change that number. So now the difference between what we put in January to now is an additional $19,925 through county.
So of the 28,782,
Yeah, is it reduced from that?
no, you're saying of that, it's not in your budget and you need 19,000.
Yes, so we originally
that's
in our
what you're
budget for January, when we submitted, we said that we would need $8,867 in county, and now it would be $28,782.
Gotcha.
So when I was reading through this, and I was reading back for FY '26 delays and adjustment, the unexpected leave by the grant personnel, are you at liberty to say what the nature of that leave was?
In reality, it's honestly because before we were not calculating out leave. They did not have us doing that. So we were including leave into salary as we do with, with our grade and steps. It's always, this X amount for this grade and step. So we were just asking for that full amount. So with someone taking leave, we were like, okay, this is not going to work going further because the grantors consider that fringe. So unexpected leave would be non-holidays, things like that.
And we estimate unspent balance of approximately $11,500 in personnel funds that we will be requesting to repurpose for other project needs. So would you be able, you cannot roll that 11.5 into this next year grant funding?
Unfortunately, they do not usually allow us to roll it over. If they give us an extension, we can. What we would do is they would say, usually it would be like, a 3-month extension, and we would have time to spend that. We would not be able to touch, if they awarded us FY27 funding, we would not be able to touch that funding until then. So it's usually universal to all any people that are receiving that grant. They would say, okay, everyone gets an extension. However, we have not been provided any guidance this year, nor any of the other years, saying that they would allow us to do that.
So would not the governor's office isn't providing any guidance towards this? Is that what you're saying, or?
Usually if there is silence of, hey, if we're wondering if there's an extension, if they don't say anything, that usually means there is no extension at all. Extensions are few and far between. For instance, VOCA did give us an extension last fiscal year, but they are not giving one for this year. GVRG has never given us one.
What gave me pause was that 3X, that when the match 3X'd between last year and this year, and that's because it prorated from the 8,867 from last year to 28,782 this year.
It was last year was not prorated for that for the leave. So going forward, we're hoping to have like this model set for into stone where we're prorating the leave out, and that will give us a better balance of what to expect every year.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Need a motion?
I move to approve the FY27 GOCPP Gun Violence Reduction Grant application and have the Commissioner President sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is from the Department of Public Works and Transportation, STS Fiscal 26 Capital Grant Award. Let's see, Director John Norris and Deputy Director Gary Whipple. Morning.
Morning. Morning.
Morning, Commissioners.
So we have two related items for your approval concerning the St. Mary's Transit System, or STS. First, we're requesting approval for the fiscal year 2026 STS Capital Grant Award from the Maryland Transit Administration. This is typically something you would see in November following a federal fiscal year that starts on October 1. They were delayed quite a bit this year, so we're just getting on your agenda now. Second, we're requesting approval of two associated budget amendments to align our accounts with the actual award to fully fund bus shelter rehab. So for the Capital Grant Award, each year the county requests capital grant funds from MTA, Maryland Transit Administration, to support vehicle replacements and maintenance. For FY26, the STS Capital Grant Award has been awarded in the total amount $555,018. That breaks down into $444,000 in federal funds, $27,750 in state funds, and a required county match of $53,255. And the grant term runs from July 1 of 25 through June 30 of 28. Covers three components: for replacement transit vehicles, preventive maintenance, and bus shelter slab repairs at the St. Andrews facility. For the budget amendment to align the grant, first, the budget amendment's necessary because the FY26 budget initially anticipated an award of $626,619 for the capital program. The actual award came in at the $555,18, the amount. Decrease revenue $57,282 from the feds. State revenue by $34,912. Also realigns the expense categories, increasing the preventative maintenance by $10,000 and office and communications by $45,294. Decreasing the fuel and oil by $50,000 and depreciation vehicle purchase reserve by $76,895. For the budget amendment for the bus shelter rehab, that is a shelter slab that was built on the closed cell of a landfill. It has experienced settling more than a foot in one bay, collects water, which turns to ice, makes a very hazardous condition, as well as increasing the risk of water entering the closed cell, which is water that we then have to treat before discharging. So the project originally had $250,000 in funding. After design, the remaining balance is $207,100. So construction costs came in at $366,850 based on a January 2026 quote. Because we are using federal funds, it includes the Davis-Bacon and the DBE goals and the Buy American Act for the steel that's in the reinforcing bar. So it creates a funding gap of $159,750. The MTA's agreed to provide an additional $45,294. The federal is giving $36,235. The state is giving another $2,265 and requires a $6,794 county match. A lot of numbers, that's why I have notes. So the remaining $114,456 we're asking to come from local funding, transferred from available bond proceeds. Total additional county funding required is $121,250. The second budget amendment moves the $114,456 of that from the FIN 26 to the project PF 2301 to cover the additional local share of the grant. So we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Like you're moving quite a bit of money around.
Unfortunately, the award didn't come in where we would have liked, so yes, we are pivoting.
But still, it's a good deal. I mean, they're paying a lion's share of this between definitely the feds and some in the state, so this is a good deal for us.
Agreed.
Well, I'm going to move to approve the FY26 STS Capital Grant Award in the amount of $555,018, and for the Commissioner Vice President to sign all related documents and authorize the Director of Public Works and Transportation to submit the grant agreement electronically.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I move to approve the budget amendment for the STS bus concrete slab repair in the amount of $114,456 in local funding and authorize the Commissioner Vice President to sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Fix them bus stuff.
Yep.
Thank you. And next up is the FAA agreement for transfer of entitlements.
You don't even have to change seats.
Though perhaps I should. Gary knows much more about this than I do, but this is a request to return FY23 funding that was not programmed by December 31 of 2025. It's not uncommon for these entitlements to go to another airport, and we have been the beneficiary of some of those in the past in the $24,500,000 we've gotten of funding for the airport and the terminal. So in this request, we're asking that the $150,000 of 2020 fiscal year 2023 funding be returned. The Washington Airports District Office has submitted a transfer request to us, and they will reallocate that $150,000 if you approve it.
So what could this money have been used for?
So it's federal money from the FAA that could be used for any airport improvement that we would get a discretionary grant for. The airport master plan was funded with discretionary grants. We had to have an approved master plan, and we were actually competing every year during that development with other airports. So the same eligibility criteria govern infrastructure improvement, plans that are in accordance with the FAA master plan. You could do maintenance and repair as long as you had environmental documentation that was covering that work. So it's the same eligibility as the grants that we normally apply for.
I just don't like that we have to return it. Did we just lose sight of it, or we ran out of time with it? I mean, if we've had it since 20.
Or do we run out of projects?
We've got projects in our current budget asking for ceiling in the terminal.
No, it's a good and fair question, because as we've completed the master plan, every year they were taking that $150,000 entitlement and rolling it up into the discretionary grant we were getting, and we did that. They did that with our knowledge and approval. So that entitlement that we got every year kind of got lost in all of the construction money that was coming for the expansion. Now that that's done, we have to account for that entitlement. The only projects that we could have nominated for this past year would have to be covered not only by an environmental approval, but also an airport layout plan update. That's the grant that we're applying for now, the airport master plan update, which will update all the planning documents, which will get us reset for projects to nominate to the FAA. So unfortunately, we're kind of in a gap between the master plan we've completed and then the one we're getting ready to go into. And so we've discussed some projects that we will look to get approvals set up by the end of December this year to use the entitlement that we have coming for next year. So we're at that cap. You can get 4 years of entitlement rolled up to $600,000, and then if there's no use that has been approved for that, they'll ask for it to be returned. They're asking because it's an entitlement. We're supposed to be able to use that, and they need our permission to return it.
So we've got time to come up with a plan for the FY24
Yes.
$150,000, and we're not going to be here a year from now returning.
What helps is that we just finished the environmental documentation for the runway rehabilitation. So everything that's out there in the runway safety area is now covered by an approved environmental document. One thing we can do is we can go back out there and start replacing storm drains that are in between the taxiway and the runway that have been there since either the original runway construction or the extension in '95. So we'll come up with a plan to keep working at those entitlements as they show up until we get the master plan approved.
Good. Well, I move to approve the FAA agreement returning $150,000 of expiring entitlement funding as requested by the Washington Airport's District Office, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign all related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. And next up is Department of Public Works and Transportation fiscal year 2027 State Highway Administration Consolidated Transportation Program Priority Letter.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
it away.
Thank you. Flying without training wheels. So this is your annual letter. It is due to the state by April 1st, and they changed the format 2 years ago. And so we've reformatted the letter to better conform to their electronic submission. This is another year like last where we could submit in writing, we can submit electronically, or both. Our intention is to do both, but we're here today to get any feedback from the Board of County Commissioners on the priority list so that we can finalize it. If you have projects we missed, we apologize, but that's why we're here, is to get your input. At the Planning Commission last night, there were 2 questions about safety projects. One is the intersection of 5 and Willows Road. That is number 2, I believe, on your safety list. And the first one was 235 at FDR Boulevard, that intersection at the north end of FDR Boulevard. I believe there's a new hotel called Avid going in near there, but asking that be a signalized intersection to be able to control the traffic and better direct traffic around the intersection of 4 and 235 that becomes so congested. So going through the list, just hitting some of the highlights, the Thomas Johnson Bridge to 4 has been our number one priority from 2002 through 2021. Not that it wasn't important in 2021 going forward, but it's just not something that we believe the state is going to find the funding for, especially now while we're watching projects get their funding moved up to Baltimore for the Francis Scott Key Bridge replacement. So
That's a button I've been pushing on since I've been elected. We desperately need that to
Yes.
be done. But
And I know that they had done some design work, and there were some questions about, does it still need to be 152 feet above mean high water? Or is that too high, given that
I think that was originally for boats to go under it, right?
at the pier over at the NWR facility where they were doing decommissioning, it was necessary for the destroyers to be able to float under. Certainly, the pier has been gone for a couple years now, and I don't know that mission's going to continue. With the air superiority of the United States Naval Air Force and the Air Force, Naval Forces, and the Air Force, I don't know that we need to float boats up through the river to Washington, D.C. to protect it any longer, but may have been necessary at some point.
I don't remember the last time we had anything that big come under that bridge anyway. I mean, that's been.
The tall ships from Baltimore will come down occasionally and do some tours over there, but even their mast height is, 129, 130, I think. So, right. So the 249 St. George's Island to raise the roadway between Thomas Road and Stark Drive to address shoreline erosion and flooding. We think MDOT has accepted that into the CTP for construction. They're pursuing grant funding, but we put that back on the list because it has not yet been completed. Under system preservation, we've increased the overlay funding request for 235 from Mechanicsville to Charlotte Hall and 244. They're showing elevated signs of distress. Pieces of 244's asphalt are actually sloughing off the hill by the middle school. Under new capacity, our top unfunded request remains the existing northbound lane from Patuxent Boulevard to South Patuxent Beach Road. That would be the shared lane, if I remember correctly. So it would be the center turn lane. No, I'm mistaken. That's 4 from Wildwood Parkway down to south. The old St. Andrews Church Road. This is actually, it's ranked 4th on their statewide unfunded priorities, and it's shared use lane between, the shared use lane between Wildwood Parkway and Old St. Andrews. Under the feasibility study, under new capacity, we're asking for 4 from 235 from Patuxent Boulevard, where it is 2 lanes today, up to South Patuxent Beach Road, so you get further queuing before the bridge.
Idea is get people off of 235 at least.
Correct.
Yeah.
Second project is 4 from Wildwood Parkway to Old St. Andrews Church Road, and that is adding a center turn lane in that area so that the...
I believe there was a study, I'm not sure if it's that intersection or the one further down by Harris Teeter that's like the second worst intersection in all of Maryland.
The absence of a right turn lane at 4 and FDR Boulevard backs up Route 4 significantly. Trying to get across Route 235 on 4 in the evenings is hard. I believe that's probably one of the...
Yeah, anybody who's been caught in that knows that that's how I've been caught in it several times, and that can take you quite a while.
Right. A lot of that at 4 and trying to go on to 235 is left turning movements that we're hoping the new signalized light at FDR and 235 just north of that would relieve, because they could turn left and take FDR to get onto 235 and come out of that intersection. And there was also a study at one point to dualize Route 4 all the way from 235 down to Indian Bridge Road. So this is extending the shared use lane, or creating a shared use lane from Wildwood Parkway to Old St. Andrews would help move that traffic along as well.
Yeah, because you add the traffic congestion just normally, and plus you add a couple of school buses in there that need to make stops on that route. You really,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Under the safety project, we're looking at the FDR 235 at the north end of FDR. We're looking at 5 in Willows Road. Those were two of the projects that were discussed at the Planning Commission last night. We're asking them to develop a plan for 243, Newtown Neck Road, where it always floods by the old State Highway Garage, the now Leonardtown Winery. We're asking for wider shoulders and sight distance corrections on 236 for the buggy traffic and bicycle traffic. Geometric review of 245 and Old Three Notch Road. We're also asking that they include the Chesapeake Bay Ferry, passenger ferry feasibility, and a geometric correction at 235 and 5 in Ridge. That intersection, you have to look back over the rear window to be able to turn left going into Ridge as you're coming off 235 and getting on 5. We're also asking for a feasibility study that would start at 245 here in Leonardtown and go out to Muldier Road, which is just before the hill where you come up to LaGrange RV Estates, looking at trying to get the schools served in a more timely manner and address through traffic there. The Route 5 and Willows Road is, so in our top 5 priorities, number 1 is the Route 4 merge lane extension to South Patuxent Beach. Number 2 is the shared use lane from Wildwood Parkway down to the old St. Andrews Church Road. Number 3 is the feasibility study from from 245 to Muldier Road. Number 4 is the 235 FDR Boulevard intersection improvements. And number 5 is the Route 5 Willows Road intersection. So unless you have additional projects or want to change the priorities.
We haven't been very successful in getting much state highway help down here. I guess this is a pretty lengthy list, and I think to go beyond much what you have here was wishful thinking.
So I do have one addition I'd like to see to the letter, and it would be kind of a change from the norm. This letter is always asking for stuff, but I think I would really like to see a section in opposition to that proposed plan to remove the southbound turn lane on 235 that I believe you're very familiar with, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I know it's being done for pedestrian safety as the idea, but it would, in
It's
my
gonna
mind,
make
I'm
them
pretty
unsafe.
confident it would cause more accidents in the morning commute and make things worse, so.
Well, it's actually both ways, right?
No, sir. It's just southbound.
It's just southbound, not northbound?
Not northbound. So in anticipation of that, at page 4 of 5, and we're happy to reword it if you'd like, under bicycle compatible shoulders, number 3. The last sentence is, we disfavor PSAP, which is the Public Pedestrian Safety Action plans that reduce motorized traffic capacity or removes existing travel or dedicated turn lanes.
That's good. I'm sorry I missed that when I read through this.
Well, we just added it last minute. It may not have
Yeah.
been in the document.
I would say strengthen it a little by calling out the specific plan.
Yes.
That they are proposing. And I recognize that it's still in a very early proposal period, and Thursday evening is the information session at Great Mills High School from 5 to 7.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's one thing I would like, I've mentioned it before, many times.
Is it the bridge?
That too, but the section of road between, right there where Walmart is, okay, right now as it stands, if you want to turn, if you're leaving Walmart and you want to go into Town Creek, you either have to come out of, over there by Cheseldine, right? And turn in there in the space of 100 yards, you have to get across 3 lanes of traffic on 3 Notch to be able to turn left onto Town Creek. I think it's an easy lift, and I've mentioned this when we've had our meetings with State Highway. I think it would be an easy lift for them instead of to do away with that and just have that just a little bit further down, right where Checkers is, where you can enter into Walmart, to make that where you, right now you can't go directly across 3-notch from there. To make that a light where you can pull straight out into Town Creek, that would increase safety. I think that's just extremely dangerous, and to me, I'm just shocked that there hasn't been more accidents there, because that's tough to do that, to cut across that many lanes of traffic, especially at 5 o'clock. So that's something I'd like, I don't know if we've looked into that at all.
So that is a stoplight that only stops the southbound traffic on 235 for people heading north on 235 to cross over into the Walmart Checkers area. That you're asking to become a full movement intersection so people could go straight across.
So straight across, and you still have the protected turns. I mean, it just makes sense to me, rather than having to cut across that many lanes of traffic on a very, very busy street. It's just dangerous.
Okay.
I'm dating myself, but I think I was on the planning commission back when that came up, because they wanted to do the super Walmart. They wanted to go from what it was. And they took that away, that intersection away, to give them those 3 outlets out onto 235 from Walmart. I think that's what the genesis of that was if you're going to have those that close, those intersections that close. But, I mean, I'm not opposed to looking at it again.
That's consensus of the board. We'll add that our staff at Public Works and Transportation is also getting much better at learning to read what State Highway is looking for, and we're starting to find they favor a progression of asking for feasibility and then design and then construction.
I mean, I definitely think your top 5 are right on the money, but I'd like to see that just added in there.
Well, Mr. Norris, there's a couple things on here that I'd like to make comments on. One, we have one thing that coming up that we didn't ask for, and that is the aforementioned taking away a turn lane on 235, which is just mind-boggling. And the stoplight that has been in the works since 2023 for Morganza. I sent an email out on the 1-year anniversary of my last correspondence from MDOT. When I was on March 6th, you were included on that email, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And have yet to hear anything back from MDOT. And I'm like, how long does it take to design a stoplight? You know, since they've been working on it since, I think the approval was in April of 2024 is when the study approved it. And was Senator Bailey and myself brought it up in, I believe, October or November of 23. And I have all those emails, obviously, and so I'd rather see that on here than something else. But I'd rather see, you know, bright yellow trucks up there working. And true concern I have is the work on 236. As everybody knows, MIR just got sanctioned as an NHRA track, and their first big event will be in May of this year. And that will be a national event. TV trucks and everything are going to be down here, and a lot of carriers use that road. And it's also going to be right in the heart of Amish going back and forth to the Barnes and Newmarket and all that. So I really think this 236 needs to have if not in the top 5, let's make it like a 5A, if possible. Because the shoulders that are, what little bit of shoulders there are just straight garbage as they are now. Who knew that a horse and buggy could wear asphalt out as bad as it does? So, and that's it. That light in Morganza and the 236 is my concerns.
Now, would you prefer us to go ahead and approve this now, or bring this back on the consent agenda for approval once the changes have been made to the letter?
That's at your discretion. I have no preference.
Consent agenda sounds good. That way you guys have one more chance to take a look at it.
Yeah, sounds good.
There's still time that we.
There is time for us. Tri-County Council is going to be talking about their priority list also Thursday, but I believe that's during the day. It's not, I don't believe it's an evening meeting. So if we could transmit this as a working draft to them so that they can know what your thoughts are on these projects and add.
Tri-County Council's next executive meeting is on the 23rd, if I'm seeing my calendar in my head correctly.
Okay. But no, we have time to meet the state deadline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last, by the Department of Public Works and Transportation, is Christmas in April 2026, and I do see 2 members of Christmas in April.
Believe Darlene Kleinsorgen. Is it close? And Ken Ritter are with us today.
He's not able to make it.
Oh, he was not, okay.
But Lee Dyson is here. He's a longtime supporter of Dyson Lumber and on our board of directors. So, good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. We are here earlier than normal because we've decided to change how we do things for the homeowners of St. Mary's County. We've been doing this. This is our 36th year of supporting the county. We've done 908 projects, 30 community projects. We've invested $10 million worth of repairs to the houses, and we've used 4,000 volunteers in the county. What we've decided to do this year to be more efficient is instead of doing everything in one day, which was very difficult trying to organize, we're going to do it whenever the house captains, and the house captains pick their project and pick the time when they want to do it. This is several advantages. We're going to continue to do inspections. We're not going to have a deadline. So if someone, our deadline was December 1st. If someone comes in January with an application that needs a roof done, and I have to tell them there's going to be 18 months before you can get that repaired, that will not happen anymore. We will continue to do inspections, and the house captains will pick their date. This gives our skilled trades, which is at a minimum for us because they're very busy and they don't have a lot of time to give to us. So they can help at several projects when they're not on the same day. Also, we have a lot of support from the base. A lot of those people travel. So if they traveled over Christmas and April Day, that's it. They can't support. So this way, they can pick a date. We can have more volunteers, more people involved. Also keep Christmas and April out there for people to see what we do more often. And we're hoping that this project is going to work. So that being said, we need to have, instead of having the dump certificates, which you graciously give us every year, for one particular week, we kind of have to have a floating time frame so that we can use it for the projects as they come up.
Makes sense.
So you'll be Christmas in 2026 or whatever?
Yeah.
You won't be.
Instead of rebuilding day, it's rebuilding days.
I guess. Well, that sounds great.
Yeah, we're just trying to spread it out. We just think it would be better to serve the community this way. And
It will certainly help, I think, with volunteers, because myself speaking, sometimes it's really hard to do that one
Exactly.
Saturday where I could pick
Exactly.
Saturday and
Yeah.
really be involved.
Yeah, we
that
see
being
a lot of
successful.
benefits. There's, like, we're still working through some of the logistics of it all, but most of it is, everybody seems to think it's a good idea. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. In years past, I've been involved. They haven't done last several years. But the point was, is we couldn't get it done by the end of the day, and it got dark. And what we do is we go back the next day. So this will allow that type of activity. If it
Correct.
takes 2 days or 3 days to get it
Right,
done.
or that sometimes they have to go the weekend before if it's a thing like we have to put cement posts in or something that has to be
Sure,
done like the week before, and then they go back and, build the ramp or, whatever we're doing.
My point was, is we had great team captains.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes their agenda or their scope of work was pretty broad.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get it all done in that
Right.
time. We started early and we were there at dark, and it was a long day. No,
Right.
I support this 100%.
Right. And sometimes you get into the project and you find things you didn't realize
Yeah,
were going to be there, and it
absolutely, yeah. Rotten
becomes
plywood,
a
yeah.
ball of wax to get done.
When's your
so.
first build coming up?
The 21st of March. It's our
Good.
first one that we're going to try, so, yep.
I move we adopt a resolution agreeing to pay the tipping fees for up to 100 tons. Is that enough?
What have we done in the past?
I don't know.
Significantly
Well, let's just say it hasn't worked in the past.
Significantly less, so
Significantly
yes,
less.
that should be fine.
Okay. 100 tons of waste disposal for Christmas and April as presented.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
God bless you.
Because they have changed their format, we will be back in July for an FY27 out request, which is part of the budget as well.
And I have some T-shirts for you, Bruce.
Thank you.
I hope you wear them proudly. Come to our builds.
Thank you both. Thank you, Director Norris. Next up, excuse me, from the County Administrator's Office is a request to ask you to approve an employment contract for Mr. Edward Moreland to be our EMS chief. He has over 20 years' experience in management of this type of work. His last job was as the chief operating officer of Bethlehem Township, the volunteer fire company that also had an EMS component. He's also a military veteran, and he's also here in the audience with some of the management and volunteer of St. Mary's County EMS, if you'd like to meet him.
Bring him up.
Bring him up. Put him on the spot.
No.
No, not well.
Just introduce yourself.
Absolutely. And with Director Jennifer Utz. Welcome.
Commissioners.
Good morning. Good morning, welcome.
Have you had a chance to look it over?
I have, sir.
What do you think?
Beautiful county.
Oh, thank you.
Looking forward to coming down.
Looking forward to having you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, well, welcome. We are excited to have you here. This is going to be good.
Director Utz and the entire staff has been wonderful, welcoming, and it's been a good trip to get here so far.
Very good.
Looking very forward to it.
Just for historical, well, first, welcome, and looking forward to working with you. But for historical context,
Yes.
how long has this position been open?
Since July of 2024. So this has been a long process, supported tremendously by Human Resources. But we are really intentional about getting the right person in the seat. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Sean Davidson, who's here, the volunteer EMS chief, who has had an oar in the water. He's genuinely invested in the success of St. Mary's County EMS, regardless of affiliation. All of our EMS officers, our current deputy directors, Kirsten Shea, John Gosford, and our former deputy director, Gerald Gardner. It's been a collective effort to move the ship forward. And again, we've been very intentional to find the right person. Ed comes with tremendous background and experience. And what's most impressive is his references, right? He's described as the guy you want in the trenches when things go bad. He has the calm. He brings calm to chaos. He's a team builder. He's a mentor. And he's a good public servant. So his references are bar none. And so we're excited. This is a critical role for us. It's long overdue, commissioners. And we just thank everybody for their patience and the all-in team approach that is taken to get us to this point. But we are invested in Ed and his success. His success is our success. And we think we've found our right person. No, I don't think we know we found our right person.
I think this was well worth the wait for this caliber of person to be to have this position. So I agree.
When's your start date?
Monday.
All right.
We're
I'll
ready.
be commuting back and forth for a little bit until we get settled. I have some family commitments up north, but we'll be back and forth for a few months.
Well, I move to approve the employment contract for the EMS chief for St. Mary's County government and authorize the commissioner president to sign the related documents.
Second.
Have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, commissioners.
Thank you. Next up is the all-important legislative update from the Office of the County Attorney. From the Deputy, John Sterling Housey.
I think John needs walk-up music.
He does.
That's
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I don't even have a response to that one. I don't know if I'm just not on my game or if I'm that taken aback by the Darth Vader theme music. But
Hey, your buddy over there said it.
Commissioners, for the record, John Hauser, Deputy County Attorney, here with your weekly legislative updates, coming to you with a fairly thin memorandum, again, with a little bit more meat on the bones than last week, but not by a whole lot. We're still in that lull between the introduction of bills, the hearing of bills, and then when they start crossing over in earnest and in full force, which is starting to happen, but you're probably not going to see really take on until next week and the week after as we approach crossover date. We've got 34 days left in the session. Crossover date is March 23rd. Our local bills have begun moving. There's not a whole lot to show yet, but the word is that HB 600 Metcom's annual Fix-It bill for Chapter 113, its passage out of committee, or its favorable report out of committee, is expected fairly imminently. Delegate T. Morgan also expects that HB 668 is going to follow. He says that's under a temporary hold from State Highway Administration because they're quibbling about signage, what it is going to look like, and who is going to eat the cost of, the couple $100 per sign, whatever roads are designated as inherently dangerous and where the solicitation and kind of activities to be prohibited by that bill would be prohibited. Don't know where State Highway Administration's hangups are coming from, because we said that we kind of just factored that cost into the cake, and we did this, and that Department of Public Works Transportation be more than willing to eat that, is more than able to eat that. I checked in with Mr. Norris after I said that and confirmed it. So we'll see, but we are expecting good things on that one. The one bill that has shown movement, SB 357, St. Mary's County, gaming by qualified organization, the rehaul of our local, the creation, not the rehaul, of a local permitting regime for gaming devices. The amendments did come through as expected, with all but one point. They narrowed down the legislation to rather than include all gaming activities, inclusive of raffles, bazaars, carnivals, etc., to just gaming devices that would require permits. Good. They also gave us a very expansive definition of gaming devices in there, which the commissioners can make of that what they will. And the way to read it could potentially go beyond the list of gaming devices that's been delineated and specifically enumerated there for decades, if the commissioners would choose to. That is authorizing, would be something you all would tackle when or if regulations to carry out this new bill are implemented by the commissioners. The one little, won't call it a hiccup, won't call it a change, the one thing we didn't quite expected, originally a effective date of October 1st of this year. The effective date changed now under this iteration to July 1st of this year. So assuming about a 6-week lead to get an ordinance through public hearing and through the commissioners, that means bringing something to you end of April, early May to be able to meet that effective date. Now, it's not great if we don't meet the effective date. Obviously, we would aspire to do that. If things take a little bit longer to perfect, to get through that, obviously, we've seen it before. World's not going to end. Nothing's immediately going to shut down. Things aren't ripped out of these gaming devices if they don't have a permit by that day. But that's certainly the date that we would aspire to and hope to meet.
Who will oversight these? Lottery Commission or the
That's to
county?
be determined. It wouldn't be the State Lottery Commission. This is all local. The how the legislation is written is that the commissioners of St. Mary's would basically designate an agent, a body, a unit
Okay,
to
it could be
carry
the
this
Alcoholic
forward.
Beverage Board, or it could be,
If you could, the Alcohol Beverage Board, because they're not directly under your control, not their state organization, not the county, could probably refuse that great honor and task if they wanted to. Currently, bingo licensing is held by the Treasurer's Office. Would be up to the commissioners to decide whether or not to carry that forward. Could potentially work something out with the Sheriff's Office. Other counties, again, not encouraging you to do this. Other counties have their county attorney's office administer their gaming boards or their gaming provisions. I believe that's the model followed in Calvert and Charles. I know it is in Charles. Believe Calvert's support staff come or at least work very, very closely with their county attorney's office as well. Like I said, Ms. Giddens has forbidden me from offering that. I just note it as something other counties do.
I'm sure that's something you would really enjoy doing.
Right. I can just hear Zach upstairs just running down here to get handed that job.
Some of those fraternal organizations do pretty good lunches. I mean, I'm just saying.
Other than that, no movement on the other local bills. Don't have too much color to give you on any of them either, except that, as noted last hearing, living shorelines and non-structural shoreline stabilization measures did encounter some institutional opposition from MDE, DNR, and Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I haven't heard officially there's a hold in there. It's not going to move, but that's all I got on those bills. Other big development last week was the first budget hearing, formal, whole thing. The Budget Reconciliation Financing Act was heard by the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee last Wednesday. Have a little bit more details on you there. Again, nothing formal, nothing decided yet. Still a lot of negotiations and deals to be worked out there, but Department of Legislative Services has, mostly as expected, come forward with a recommendation to double that cost shift of the teacher, community college, and library pension retirements. Well, remember, and for those watching at home, last year the state shifted about half of, so even before that, these retirement pickup costs are supposed to be a half and half split between your employer, the schools, the libraries, the community college, whatever the case might be, and the state, picking up the remaining 50%. And these are for certain retirement costs. Last year, the state shifted half of their obligation to the counties. They proposed to shift another quarter of that original amount over the counties this year in the governor's budget. Department of Legislative Services come forward with just have local counties eat the entire cost of that remaining state share. We don't like that. We don't want that. It's not great policy. Fight against it as we will. It was, however, something that's more or less been expected, and they have been telegraphing fairly openly for the last few months. That's another $640,000 odd hit to the county bottom line, but again, not an entirely unanticipated one. We'll see. Department of Legislative Services, it's just a recommendation. The General Assembly has as much obligation to go forward with those recommendations as you do with anything I tell you all or any of your staff does, but that one seems like there's consensus behind it. Another thing the Department of Legislative Services came forward with as well, some additional cuts in education funding that amount to quite a few $1 million. No jurisdictional estimate or local county-by-county breakdown of what those costs would entail to each system yet, but that's something just to be on the radar. And then as far as what the Department of Legislative Services advised keeping in the governor's budget, the invoicing of the future costs of the assisted outpatient treatment program for certain opioid disorders. Counties may set that one up. No county has set that one up on their own. When counties don't set them up on their own, Maryland Department of Health, through a county health agency or similar body, sets up the program on themselves. There's up till now been no real allotment or discussion of who bears the costs when the state does that on behalf of a county. This insertion into the BRFA would, if passed, bill ultimately 100%, beginning as 25% in FY28 and then rising 25% every year thereafter to the local counties that benefit from that state expense. Lots of uncertainty about this one, and it's a delayed effective date. It wouldn't hit us in this coming FY, only FY28 if it goes forward. The big unknown on this one is that nobody knows exactly how much these costs would be yet because the AOPs are not yet set up. And one of the reasons they're not yet set up is that the state, from my understanding, hasn't exactly been forward or comprehensive with their description of what these AOPs must involve. Bit of a recurring theme with some things I've been bringing to you recently. So we'll see. There is some little bit of chatter on that one that the new Speaker of the House, she formerly chaired the Health Committee, apparently thinks this should be taken out from the BRFA. Does not necessarily mean this model of charging counties for state expenses shouldn't be followed, just that the BRFA probably isn't the correct vehicle to do it, and maybe there's some more information that needs to be known before this gets us. The other thing DLS recommended not changing, a $300,000 cut Tri-County Council. I haven't heard any reason to suspect that would get changed or thrown back in there. Just say that because it is a local organization with some salience to us, so the commissioners are aware. And then one of the big cost-saving mandate reductions overall in the statewide in the BRFA is a cap in the amount of annual state aid that will be given to your local community colleges. That the local state aid could only, under this provision, grow by a maximum of 3% year over year. How that would work to the existing funding formula that community or College of Southern Maryland, among others, benefits from, they're not going to get as much state money. And for College of Southern Maryland, that looks like about an $860,000 odd cut in their expected funding under the CAID formula for this coming year, if it's passed. Now, there was some pushback, there was some discussion of that at the budget BRFA hearing. I'm not sure that provision exists quite in the same form, if at all. Also heard some things, read some things that maybe the Senate and the House aren't completely on the same page about what they want to do with the community colleges. Yeah, imagine that. So we will see highlighted again as a hit to just a regional partner and someone we work with. The other big thing that the state said, not because it has any effect on us, there's about $27 odd million of proposed grants to other less affluent counties in the form of the disparity grants they get for education funding from the state. Extreme skepticism voiced of those disparity grants and the cuts to them. They had presentations from both Prince George's County executive and poor person from Allegheny County. Drove the 4 hours in there just to be told, yeah, this is coming out. But I raised that again, no immediate impact on St. Mary's County, but between that and the community college funding, those are holes of $24 million and $27 million that aren't answered for then. And either they find other ways to eat that, other cost shifts to do, other rainy day funds to raid, or they find other cost shifts to make up for it. It's just something to be on the lookout. So in summary, budget, we have consensus on some things, but it's still, I would say, a legislative framework that is under active consideration in Annapolis. Only other thing I'll touch on that, we're not seeing new bills. We are seeing movement, and too early to say the crystallization of efforts on this one, but we know, and we've talked about it a lot, that housing is a big recurring theme up in Annapolis this year. General Assembly wants to do something. They do not typically wade into matters of local zoning, but whether because they think it's necessary, whether because they think it looks good, or a little bit of both, they are certainly expressing a lot of interest this year in wading into areas that are traditionally local areas of influence and control, namely by restricting local authority over zoning approvals and kind of our ability to immediately and directly control single-family dwellings, townhomes, and when and where and what is the process for residential projects to go through their development process. You had some very maximal proposals at the beginning of the year. You've had some very modest and milquetoast ones. You probably got a dozen bills in total that are still out there. Silver and Starter Homes and the Housing Certainty Act from the governor's package, MACO's Build Affordably in My Backyard Act, Middle Housing, HB 778, the Middle Housing Certainty Act, I think was what it was called on that one, and about a few others that have to do with ADUs, regional transit systems, et cetera, et cetera. Still nothing final yet, and is still something that is very under active review. What seems to be consensus points right now, the General Assembly is now signaling some skepticism about coming in and subverting zoning authority so completely that you have to treat townhomes just like single-family dwellings in all cases. You saw a lot of that. That's all what the Silver and Starter Homes and HB 778 were like. MACO's kind of read on the climate right now is the pushback of having to allow townhomes basically anywhere you would a single-family dwelling might disrupt the character of certain parts of the county too much, and maybe more urgently and imminently than that, get a lot of angry letters and emails delivered to them if it goes forward. What does seem to certainly have legs, though, yet are the provisions you see in the Housing Certainty Act. Early vesting appears to remain very much an active topic. So when a developer brings a more or less complete application forward, that they are locked into the rules that govern the approval at the time they make that submission. We'll see exactly how that works out in the end, but that's a big departure from how Maryland has traditionally done things. And not that it's of too much interest to the commissioners if the proposed changes to the excise tax with this respect take effect, but requiring or forbidding the early collection of excise taxes or impact fees from housing projects, rather than making them collectible in full or allowing them to be collectible in full at the issuance of a building permit, making them so that they may not be collected, at least in part, until issuance of a final UNO, once the project is completed permitting and ready to be absorbed into the market. Again, commissioners already contemplating and putting forward a change to do just that in St. Mary's County already. So, hey, we're leading again. They're just taking their lead from us, but that's kind of where housing is shaken up right now. That's what I've got for you in the way of prepared remarks. If there are any questions, other things to look at, happy to do it. Expecting to have a lot more activity and updates soon, but we're not quite there yet.
I think Commissioner Colvin has been on almost all the rural counties meetings for MACO, and there was no taste for anything that required the diminishing of local autonomy when it comes to zoning. And if I'm not, MACO did a letter of opposition already, correct? At least on 778, I believe it did. Quick review on the legislative process. So 357 has crossed over, correct?
Correct.
And so 610, I was reading yesterday, is still in committee in the House. Since those bills are basically identical, Does 610 get vacated and it just roll with 357, or both of them have to go through?
So what they'd have to do is that the Senate will be giving a hearing to SB 357 in its amending form, and then the House the House will give SB 357 a hearing since it's been amended, and technically not the same proposals anymore. Once they have that hearing, House then votes to decide whether or not to concur with those amendments. If they do, it's fine, it's simple. If not, then whatever amended version of the bill would be passed by the House would go back to the Senate for final concurrence. No reason to suspect the House will do anything but concur with those amendments, but we'll see.
I mean, it was 43-0 on that vote, so.
And since I mentioned, I did gloss over something real quick here. The letter of support we previously sent was supporting SB 357 with amendments. With the commissioner's consensus, we'll just make the quick administrative change to that letter to say support it as amended, since the amendments, you all have them in the packet. Do what we expected and just clear up that there are not additional amendments the commissioners are asking for once the portal for submitting testimony opens up for that new hearing in the House.
I'm fine with it as amended. The amendments are good.
Yep. And then just wanted to spare you all a formal motion on SB 57, gaming permit required, 85 minutes after we did Problem Gambling Awareness Month. That'll be it, Commissioners. Again, anything else, feel free to let me know. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Back to you, Commissioner Ostro, for commissioner time.
All right, then we'll just move right into commissioner time, and we'll start with Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you. Well, this afternoon's our budget work session. It's the third of the 4 in a row we hold, and this today will be county departments. And another very important step in the process of developing a county budget. It's always people are asking for more than we have to give, and it gets to be a very delicate balancing act to strike a balance between what you need and what we can provide. So if you have time, please look forward to the budget work session starting at 1:30. Now tonight we have a public hearing starting at 6:30 here in this room, and it's to discuss the excise tax ordinance that was passed and implemented on July 1st of 2023. Now it's created a lot of concern among residents, and it's specifically to discuss the town of Leonardtown collecting the excise tax and remitting it to the county. Now, one thing I've found interesting in different posts I've read is that there's a misinterpretation that the town of Leonardtown has to pay it. We're not asking them to pay it. We're asking them to collect it from the developer who has to pay it everywhere else in the county and just forwarding it to the county. It's not coming out of Leonardtown's coffers. It could be done as simply as when the developer picks up his permit or his UNO or whatever the process is, they can make a check out to the county that could just be forwarded to the county. I don't know if it's that simple, but again, it's not the town of Leonardtown having to pay this out of their taxes or their coffers. It's asking them to collect it from the developer who are out for over 95, probably 98% of the developers in Leonardtown doing residential are out-of-county developers. For the life of me, I don't understand why they cannot collect from a developer a fee that the developer has to pay everywhere else. But that's for the public to come and talk to us tonight, and that's at 6:30. Now, on a lighter note, good news is I saw some daffodils blooming this morning. I got my springtime tie on. It's supposed to be 80 degrees today. It's too bad we have to be in here this morning, and this afternoon we have to be in another meeting probably most of the afternoon, and tonight again. This is beautiful springtime weather in St. Mary's County. Now, I hear it's only supposed to last for the next couple days, and that we're supposed to get back down into the high 20s and low 40s and things like that. High 20s for the lows, low 40s for the highs later in the week to next week. Look, it's weather in Maryland. You know, we can't help it, but just the way we are, but I love it. Lastly, I want to congratulate the Hollywood Volunteer Fire Department and their Ladies Auxiliary for their spring dinner that they put on this past Saturday. What was unique was it was the first time they had dine-in since COVID. Now, but prior to COVID, they always had dine-in, and it was packed. This year, and what's going on with many other places, they're doing carry-out. Now, they did almost 600 carry-out dinners, and they had about 160 dine-in. I enjoy dining in, but Lord knows it's so much work for those people to put it on, and they're such a great community organization, and they do great work, so thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Very good. So, it was a busy weekend as usual, and I just want to give a shout out to our St. Mary's County Farm Bureau. They are celebrating 100 years of being in existence. That's incredible. And I was at their annual dinner. This was their 87th, I believe, maybe 89th dinner, but 100 years in existence. And they recognized the Van Ryswick family as the Farm Family of the Year. And man, they brought their whole family. There was kids, grandkids. It was a very nice turnout and very nice event. So thank you to the Farm Bureau and all the advocacy that they do. And there's a couple different great opportunities for community input this week. We talked about it earlier in the meeting, but there is a proposal from Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway, to take away the southbound turn lane on Route 235 from Chancellor's Run Road all the way to Great Mills Road. Just get rid of that turn lane and turn it into a walk, bike, pedestrian pathway with some kind of a barrier in between the roadway. And that's not a good idea. It's really not. It's just not a good idea. It's going to make traffic, the morning commute, that much worse, especially as more and more people are going back onto the base for work. There's an information session by State Highway on Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. at Great Mills High School. If you're able, please go. See what they have to say and provide your input. It's not a formal presentation. They'll have displays set up and be able to answer questions and stuff, so you could show up at any time between 5 and 7, whatever's convenient for you. But it's not a well thought out plan in my mind, and I know that our state delegation's aware of it too and is opposed to it too. Also, tonight, we have the public hearing on the excise tax. It's been debated a lot. We debated it in closed session for several meetings, and then we debated it in open session for several meetings, and it's a lot of debate about not a lot for the county, because the county collects less than $1.5 million of excise tax that goes to our CIP budget. So the impact to the county projects is not significant, but the impact to the people who are trying to build a house is much more significant. I'm opposed to this update. I would like to see the excise tax reduced significantly. It's one of the things that our comptroller laid out that hurts home affordability, and that's the big buzzword that we keep hearing up here is affordability. And the excise tax is a documented thing that hurts affordability. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to hear from people tonight, and I'm hoping that this board will keep an open mind to whatever people have to say, and we'll move forward from there. Thank you.
All right. Let me take it away now. Okay. All right. So I want to go ahead and hop on along with Commissioner Hewitt over there, and the weather fantastic. It was beautiful yesterday. Beautiful today from what I'm guessing. Seeing the door open up every once in a while. And Saturday night I came by here. My apologies to the Farm Bureau. I ended up having double booking myself on Saturday, so my apologies to those folks. We stopped by here late Saturday evening to pick up my little bit of light reading for the weekend. And as soon as I jumped out of the car, all you could hear were peepers. And to me, that is one of the two signs I look for. And the second sign is ospreys. I haven't seen any osprey yet, but I have heard reports that they are back in the area. And with nice weather, and I'm sure if people drive half as much as I do, people sort of lose their mind a little bit when it gets nice weather. The windows come down, the stereo goes up, and caution goes out the window. It wasn't too terrible yesterday. I'm just glad I'm not going into work this evening to have to deal with it. But please be careful out there and let everybody enjoy this weather. And being laid up in the hospital or in the back of an ambulance is not how to enjoy nice weather. So with nice weather, also, you're going to see more motorcycles out. I know within the next month or so, ABATE will be in here talking about motorcycle safety and legislation for motorcyclists and protections for them. But like I said last year, motorcyclists also have to take a responsibility for their actions on the road. I just double checked. And did you know that lane splitting and lane filtering is illegal in the state of Maryland? So when you're going up 235, up into Branch Avenue, up towards areas I drive in, you see lane splitting all the time. How I have not seen more motorcycles eat it because of lane splitting, I have no idea. But please be mindful of the motorcyclists, be mindful of the laws. So if you want respect, and you have to give respect to everybody else, and that goes on both sides of the aisle here. Once again, had MDOT our wish list, and guess what? There's no pony of a bridge this year for us. So we'll keep asking for this. Probably think 25 years in a row, 23 something like that, years in a row, asking for a new bridge, and we're not going to get one. But, you know, we're going to get a lane taken away on 235, which is just awesome. And just so everybody knows, if the road has a number on it, it is a state road, not a county road. If you think anybody on this board would think about taking away a lane on 235, then it's not hard to go ahead and send us an email and we'll set you straight. Good news on SB 357. The gaming devices for fraternal organizations and charitable organizations. That's a lot of money that comes from these devices and these organizations that go into local charities. And we didn't have a problem for years and years, and then there was a slip up on it, maybe an oversight on the county part, maybe lottery commission decided to enact something or enforce something that hadn't necessarily enforced earlier. But we're going to get that straight and get those devices back into these charitable organizations and get the money flowing back into these local charities. And if you want to check on the budget and talk about and read what John was talking about, John Hauser was talking about, then the DLS analysis is online now. You can just you'd have to Google that. I didn't get the web address here. And also to piggyback on Commissioner Hewitt, Holy Angels Church is doing their big spring dinner on the 22nd, Sunday afternoon. It's drive-through only because doing dine-in is a huge strain. And like most churches, we are experiencing a shortage of people as people start to age out, and younger people aren't really interested in doing that kind of stuff on a weekend. So I invite you to come on out and visit us and get too much food for too little money. And with that, I'll pass it on.
All right. Well, a lot going on in the Ostro household. We had a wonderful event yesterday, 10 a.m. My fourth grandson was born, and it has been a long wait and a long road. We have had the date pushed a couple of times for the new arrival due to doctors, you go in, they look, and they're, well, you're not quite ready, so we're going to wait. And, my daughter-in-law has been on bed rest for last week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So, but I'm glad to announce that we have another happy, healthy baby grandson, and that it will be the last grandson from my son and his wife. So I have now begun to put the pressure on my two daughters they're going to need to step up. Because, Grandpa doesn't have too much more time to enjoy grandbabies. So that was wonderful. This past Friday, the 6th, it was my privilege to be able to, once again, I love to go every year. I've been doing it for many, many years. But it was extra special this year. I was able to go and do Read Across America at Town Creek Elementary School. And it was the first year that, I go to read to the pre-K and the kindergarten class, but it was the first year in the kindergarten class that my granddaughter was in there. So that was extra special for me, and she was very excited. to have her BAPA, as she calls us, to come and read. So it's always a great experience, and I encourage people to get involved in that. The schools are always looking for people to come and read, and it's an hour out of your day, and it's very important to encourage young people to read. Studies have shown that when you read to young people and you encourage them to read, their education becomes much better and they become faster learners. So I encourage everybody to get involved in that every year. Just reach out to the school system. They're happy to sign people up for that. This afternoon, we do have a budget work session, so we will be trudging through that, starting at 1:30. It is, as Commissioner Hewitt said, it is always very difficult. We understand that everybody, all agencies and departments have needs, but the cloth can only be cut so many ways, and it is a very difficult process to work through to make sure that everybody has what they need. We can't always give everybody everything that they ask for, but we try very hard to make sure that everybody has what they need. And with these very uncertain times, we spoke about it during legislative time. Today, the state is pushing more and more down on the counties, and we have to, those are things we have to pick up. We don't have a choice. So that limits, again, what we can do for our departments here, because we have to help the state because they can't manage their money. This evening, we do have a public forum, public hearing on the excise tax proposal. Once again, as Commissioner Hewitt said, we are not putting this on Leonardtown. We are asking Leonardtown to collect it. For me, it also goes into what is fair. In Leonardtown, if you have somebody building a $700,000 house and they need to pay the county excise tax of $6,900 and something dollars, that's very different than somebody in Lexington Park or California who's trying to build a $270,000 house and us telling them, well, you know what, you have to pay this excise fee, or excise tax, but this person over in Leonardtown does not. And it is about fairness and equity to this commissioner, that we make sure that it is fair to everybody in the county. It is only on new construction. It is not something that people are going to have to pay year over year. It's not a new tax that's going to be springing up on everybody. So it's only for new home construction. It's a one-time fee. So I want to make sure that we're very, very clear on that. Once again, also this coming Thursday, 12th, we do have a hearing at Great Mill. Oh, it's not a hearing, it's time to come and see what MDOT is proposing to do on 3-notch. I know Commissioner Colvin has put some stuff out on Facebook, and so have I, about this, and a lot of the comments that I have seen, well, not a lot, but some of the comments that I have seen is people think it's the county commissioners that are doing this, and that could not be farther from the truth. And I have made sure to respond in those comments to be like, people need to come out and see what the state is proposing. This is something the state is proposing, and this is overwhelmingly what I'm hearing, and I fully agree with. This is, in the history of bad ideas, this is the worst idea ever, period, ever. It is going to be much more dangerous on 3-notch. It is going to cause more accidents. I can't speak strongly enough about this, so I encourage everybody, come out, look at what they're doing, talk to the people that are there, let them know where you stand on this issue. We are seeing some hope of spring weather. Yesterday was beautiful. My wife and I have been, with the arrival of our latest grandchild, my wife and I have had our other 3 grandchildren at our house for the past 3 or 4 days, and we're tired. But we are a shade old to be chasing toddlers around, but we had a wonderful day yesterday, took the day off from work, and spent time with the grandchildren and took them to the park, to Town Creek Park. Beautiful day out, ran them around, had a good time, got to go and see the new baby. Just absolute beautiful weather. It's just a tease for me because it is going to start turning cold again, but I am so ready to get out of my garden and get my spring planting done. But we're going to have to wait a little bit longer so we get past those late spring freezes. So I encourage everybody, come out tonight at 6:30, tune into the budget work session at 1:30 today. And with that, I need one more motion. Adjourn. Oh, okay, go ahead and adjourn.
Bang your hand. There you go.
Boom, we're done.
No closed session today.
No closed session today.